Carmen was deep inside of the forest when she suddenly hears a strange noise. She had never heard this noise before. She followed the noise and soon saw where the noise came from. She was looking at a strange bird in a tree. However, she could make sense of what kind of bird it was. When she got closer, something happened that she could not see coming. The noise from the bird started to hurt her ears. Carmen tried to approach the bird to see what it was, but the pain started to hold her back. She had a feeling she wasn't welcome here, but she decided to ignore the pain and just try to get closer. Then the pain got so intense in her ears that it almost made her collapse. Carmen screamed in pain. Her ears were burning due to the high-pitched sound coming from the bird. This bird did not want Carmen to come closer. Carmen had to know what this was, but at a certain point, the pain in her ears became unbearable. This was when it went black for Carmen. She did not realize until it was too late that she could not take the pain anymore. She fainted. Everything went pitch black, and Carmen was completely off the world. What just happened? After a while, Carmen suddenly woke up. Her eyes immediately widened, and she was shocked. She did not hear the sound anymore, but she had an enormous headache. She wondered how long she had been out. She realized she did not have the strength to stand on her feet anymore. Carmen started crawling back to safety, but immediately when she started moving, the high-pitched noise started again. Carmen started crying. This was truly a nightmare for her. She then realized it wasn't morning anymore, but close to evening. With intense pain, she managed to crawl to a safe distance to regain her strength again. She grabbed her camera to zoom in on the bird again. Then she got to the realization that her camera was broken, either due to her fall or due to the sound. She had to get help. But where was she to seek help now? She marked the safe spot with a hair clip she had in her bag. That way she could easily spot it and stay safe. She needed to find someone to help her as soon as possible. Because she had been unconscious for a while, the afternoon passed faster than she had hoped. It was slowly getting dark, and she began to see less. It was no longer a safe situation to stay here. Carmen decided to go home. By now, it was so dark that she could only find her way back with the help of the flashlight on her phone. She was glad when she saw her car parked and could go home. But the bird continued to haunt her mind. That night, Carmen could not fall asleep. She kept tossing and turning, but she couldn't let go of the event with the bird. It also raised so many questions. How did her camera break down? What exactly was going on there? She had so many questions that she was desperate for answers. What exactly was going on with that bird? Why was she fainting? Did she imagine it, or was something really going on? There was only one way to find out. Before going back to the bird, she decided to go to a friend for advice. Carmen had to get someone on her side, and she had to tell her story. She went to her best friend, who she wanted to join her to get closer to the bird, but that would be a real challenge. She told Amy, her friend, what she had found and what had happened. Amy instantly turned pale. She was initially way too scared to join Carmen, but Carmen managed to convince her. However, Amy wanted to ask some local people about the incident first. Carmen and Amy went inside the town to talk to some older people who had lived there for a very long time. Carmen was convinced someone had to know something about this bird. When asking an old lady, she was shocked and walked away. What was going on? Everyone they tried talking to seemed way too scared to talk about the bird. They did not let anything slide, so they had to know something that was going on. This could not be a coincidence. Amy wanted to leave it alone, but Carmen had to figure it out. Carmen felt like she was a true victim here. While asking the locals, she got a strange feeling that she needed to leave it alone. But she would not let this go by. Amy was really scared but did not want to leave her friend alone. Amy really struggled with the decision to join Carmen, who wanted to go back to the bird. She convinced Carmen to at least buy some earplugs. This would reduce the sound of the bird. In theory, they should not faint, but this was just in theory. Carmen knew exactly where to go. She had memorized where the bird was. Then she realized something. They'd barely seen any wildlife going to the bird. Even if they didn't see them directly, there was always some noise in the background. But in this part, it was dead quiet. Amy said that they weren't allowed in this part of the forest, but Carmen had never seen signs stating that. She tried to pull up a satellite view on her phone, but there wasn't any service in the more remote regions. If they needed help, they couldn't get it. Finally, Carmen decided to pause and check their location again. She was able to get a weak signal on their GPS tracker that indicated they were close to the spot she had seen the bird. Happy that they'd been heading in the right direction. After all, she didn't even stop to think about what they might find when they reached their final destination. Carmen now saw the spot she had seen the bird, and she approached cautiously. She took a few steps closer and suddenly fell over, her foot tangled in something. Amy hurried over to help her remove her boot and get free. When they looked up, they were staring at the bird. Instantly, both their ears almost exploded with pain. Amy had never felt something like this before. She almost faints due to the sound. She was screaming to Carmen to get out of there, but Carmen seemed determined to get closer. When Amy got the chance, she crawled up on her feet and ran away very fast, leaving Carmen behind all on her own. When she did not hear the sound anymore, she turned around. What she saw next shocked her. Carmen was crawling on the ground. She had managed to get her earplugs in her ear. However, they did not seem to help. The sound pierced right through it. Amy wanted to get Carmen out of this situation, but she could not get closer. She had to get help. Amy had to get a ranger. She knew they had passed a ranger's house a couple of minutes ago. She ran over to the house immediately. She was completely out of breath when she got there. Hysterically, she tried telling him what had happened, but he did not believe her. The ranger, Mark, did not really want to help Amy at first. He felt like she was making up a story, but she kept pushing him to help. Mark eventually gave in to calm Amy down, but Amy felt like Mark had something to hide. While going back, Mark was awfully quiet. Amy had not told him where exactly the bird and Carmen were, but Mark seemed to know instantly where to go to. He walked in a straight line to the place with the bird. Had he been there before? Amy was shocked when reaching the place with the bird. Carmen was gone. Amy did not believe her eyes. They had just been here. Did she get out safely? Amy was totally confused. However, Mark started acting really strange. Mark told Amy that no one was there and that they should get out of the forest. Amy should not be here. Mark did not even want to look further. Amy realized that the bird was still in the tree. This time, when she approached it, it did not make a sound. Was it even a bird? Mark got really angry when Amy moved closer. It was like he did not want Amy to move any closer to the bird. Mark led Amy away from the bird. Amy wanted to call the police, but Mark immediately refused. He told Amy to calm down and that he would help look for her. Amy got a weird feeling about this, but she agreed anyways. She thought it was weird that Mark did not want to get the police involved. She decided to play his game and follow him. Amy was determined to get the answers that night, but then she spotted something else. Amy noticed that there was a series of wires that seemed to go around the perimeter of the bird. They were about shin height and looked like they were designed to make people trip. Feeling uneasy, she decided to follow the wires to see where they led. The tripwires seemed to lead around the area where the bird sat in the tree. Amy thought this was really strange. Mark seemed to easily navigate around the tripwire. This made him even more suspicious. Amy then looked up and saw something else. Then Amy saw what it was. It was a camera attached to the tree. Amy felt even more unsafe. This couldn't be good. Mark then changed in attitude as well. He didn't like the whole situation. Everything got much worse after that. When confronting Mark, he did not seem impressed. He acknowledged that the camera was there. He said that there were more cameras in the forest, and that this wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Then Amy heard footsteps. Amy had heard something in the distance, and she felt her heart stop for a moment. Who was approaching them? She felt totally unsafe even with Mark there. Then she decided to just walk towards the bird to see what would happen. Instantly, when moving towards the bird, Mark lunged at Amy. He tried keeping her from the bird. Now she definitely knew that Mark could not be trusted. Immediately, she tried shaking Mark. She kicked him to get loose and decided to make a run for it. She had to warn the police. Without any hesitation, Amy made a run for it. She couldn't risk getting caught by Mark or someone else that was approaching them. If she would be captured here, nobody would look for her or Carmen. Then she heard something shouting at her from a distance to stop running. When she did not stop running, she heard dogs barking. Somebody had let dogs loose to track her down. She felt like somebody was getting closer, and the barking was getting louder as well. The dogs were tracking her. Suddenly, Amy tripped over a branch. She hurt herself so much that she could not run any further. Maybe it was best for her to see who was actually tracking her and why. Maybe it wasn't so bad after all. This could be a catastrophic gamble. Amy was a little scared. Then she saw two German shepherds getting closer to her. Why were these dogs following her? All kinds of questions popped into her head. She felt like this would be a life-threatening situation. The dogs looked very angry. Amy was totally pinned down by the dogs. She could now move anywhere, but it did not seem like the dogs were going to hurt her. They just kept her in this spot. Then suddenly the dogs were called off, and a man approached them. Who was this mysterious man? Mark and another man approached Amy. They had sweat all over their faces from running after Amy. The other man called off the dogs and introduced himself as Alex. He did not seem like he had any bad intentions, but he looked very serious. Amy was instructed to follow them and remain quiet. Amy obeyed them and followed the two men. She wasn't sure what would happen, but she knew that it would already have happened if they had any wrong intentions. Then she spotted where they were going, a military compound. Amy was totally baffled. Now she realized as well that Alex was in full uniform. He had to be military. What had she done? Was this connected to the strange bird? Amy decided to keep quiet, as she soon would find out. When she entered the military compound, she saw Carmen. Carmen was being treated by a nurse, as she was hurt pretty bad.